Your brain is smaller than it was 10 years ago, not by much. Not enough to notice day to day, but measurably, physically, structurally smaller. And if you are living a typical modern life, the shrinkage is accelerating. Brain atrophy was once considered an inevitable consequence of aging, something that happened to elderly people, something you couldn't prevent. The science of the last decade has completely overturned that assumption. We now know that the brain shrinks in response to specific, identifiable, modifiable factors, many of which are built into the fabric of everyday modern life. We also know that the brain can grow, that lost volume can be recovered, that the process of neurodegeneration is not a one-way door, but only if you understand what is causing it, and only if you act. That is what this video is about. Most people think of the brain as a fixed organ, something you are born with, use throughout your life, and gradually lose as you age. This view is wrong. The brain is one of the most dynamic, adaptable organs in the human body. It responds to environment, behavior, sleep, diet, stress, and social connection, constantly reshaping itself in response to how you live. This property is called neuroplasticity, and it cuts both ways. The same brain that can grow new neurons, form new connections, and recover from injury can also shrink, lose connections, and degrade in response to chronic stress, poor sleep, sedentary behavior, and nutritional deficiency. Brain volume is not destiny. It is a reflection of your lifestyle. And for a significant proportion of people living in the modern world, that lifestyle is actively shrinking one of the most complex structures in the known universe. Let's look at the specific mechanisms, the exact processes through which modern life is reducing brain volume. Cause 1. Chronic stress and cortisol. The hippocampus is the region of the brain most critical for memory formation, spatial navigation, and emotional regulation. It is also the region most vulnerable to the effects of chronic stress. When cortisol, the primary stress hormone, is chronically elevated, it becomes directly neurotoxic to hippocampal neurons. It inhibits the production of BDNF, the protein responsible for neuronal growth and survival. It promotes neuroinflammation, and over time, it causes measurable, visible shrinkage of hippocampal volume. Multiple MRI studies have confirmed this. People with chronic stress disorders show hippocampal volumes 10 to 20% smaller than controls. People with post-traumatic stress disorder show some of the most dramatic hippocampal atrophy ever recorded in living subjects, but you don't need a clinical diagnosis to be losing hippocampal volume. Chronic low-grade stress, the kind produced by financial pressure, relationship conflict, overwork, and constant digital stimulation, produces the same neurotoxic cortisol, just more slowly. Cause 2. Sleep deprivation. During sleep, the brain activates a system called the glymphatic system, a network of channels that flush toxic waste products from brain tissue. Among the compounds cleared during sleep is amyloid beta, the protein that accumulates into plaques associated with Alzheimer's disease. When you don't sleep enough, or when your sleep quality is poor, this clearance system fails. Amyloid beta accumulates, neuroinflammation increases, and over time, neuronal death accelerates. A landmark study from the University of California found that even a single night of sleep deprivation produced a significant increase in amyloid beta accumulation in the human brain, particularly in the hippocampus and thalamus. The brain's waste clearance system requires sleep to function. There is no substitute. Chronic sleep deprivation, defined as regularly getting less than 7 hours, has been associated in longitudinal studies with accelerated brain aging of up to 3 years. Your brain, on insufficient sleep, is measurably older than your chronological age. Cause 3. Physical inactivity. Exercise is the single most powerful stimulus for BDNF production in the human brain. BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, is sometimes called miracle grow for the brain. It promotes the growth of new neurons, strengthens synaptic connections, and protects existing neurons from degeneration. When you are sedentary, BDNF production drops. Neurogenesis, the birth of new neurons, slows. The hippocampus, which depends on a continuous supply of new neurons for memory function, begins to shrink. A pivotal study from the University of Illinois demonstrated that adults who walked briskly for 40 minutes 3 times per week for 1 year showed a 2% increase in hippocampal volume, reversing approximately 1 to 2 years of age-related atrophy. The control group, who only stretched, showed continued shrinkage. That study is remarkable for one reason above all others. It showed that brain volume loss is not irreversible. The brain grew back, with nothing more than walking. Cause 4. Poor nutrition. The brain is the most metabolically expensive organ in the body, consuming roughly 20% of your total energy despite representing only 2% of your body weight. It requires a continuous supply of specific nutrients to maintain structure and function. Omega-3 fatty acids, particularly DHA, are structural components of neuronal membranes. Deficiency is associated with reduced gray matter volume and accelerated cognitive decline. Magnesium is required for over 300 enzymatic processes in the brain. Deficiency impairs synaptic plasticity and increases neuroinflammation. B vitamins, particularly B12 and folate, are essential for myelin production, the protective sheath around neurons. Deficiency causes measurable brain atrophy, particularly in the elderly. The ultra-processed diet that now dominates modern food consumption is deficient in virtually all of these critical nutrients. It is, in a very literal sense, a brain-shrinking diet. Cause 5. Social isolation. The human brain is a social organ. It evolved in the context of constant social engagement, and it depends on that engagement to maintain cognitive function. Studies consistently show that socially isolated individuals exhibit faster rates of cognitive decline, reduced gray matter volume in the prefrontal cortex, and significantly elevated risk of dementia. The mechanism involves both chronic stress activation from loneliness and the loss of cognitive stimulation that comes from navigating complex social interactions. Loneliness at the neurological level is not just painful, it is structurally damaging. You may already be experiencing the early signs, even if you are decades away from any clinical diagnosis. Walking into a room and forgetting why you went there, reading a paragraph 3 times and retaining nothing, struggling to recall a word you know perfectly well. A general sense that your thinking is slower, less sharp, less reliable than it used to be. These are not just quirks of a busy life. These are early signals from a brain under chronic pressure. The reassuring truth is this. At this stage, the process is almost entirely reversible. The brain has not lost its capacity to grow. It has simply been deprived of the conditions it needs to do so. Change the conditions, and the brain responds. Here is what the science says actually works. Not supplements marketed on Instagram, but interventions with MRI-confirmed evidence of brain volume preservation and recovery. Intervention 1. Aerobic exercise. 3 to 5 sessions per week of moderate aerobic exercise, 30 to 45 minutes each, produces the strongest and most consistent increases in BDNF and hippocampal volume of any intervention ever studied. Walking, cycling, swimming, anything that elevates your heart rate and sustains it. This is the closest thing to a brain growth pill that science has ever found. Intervention 2. Sleep optimization. Prioritize 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep every night. This is not a luxury. It is when your glymphatic system clears the toxic byproducts of daily brain activity. No supplement, no nootropic, no intervention compensates for insufficient sleep. Protect it with the same seriousness you would protect your diet or your exercise. Intervention 3. Chronic stress reduction. Lower your baseline cortisol through whatever evidence-based means works for you. Consistent exercise, daily outdoor time, reduced news and social media consumption, genuine social connection, breath work, cold exposure. The goal is not to eliminate stress. It is to prevent cortisol from remaining chronically elevated. Your hippocampus depends on it. Intervention 4. Brain supportive nutrition. Prioritize omega-3 fatty acids, oily fish, flaxseed, walnuts. Ensure adequate magnesium, dark leafy greens, nuts, seeds. Maintain B12 and folate levels, particularly critical if you are over 50 or follow a plant-based diet. And reduce ultra-processed food, which depletes the micronutrients your brain depends on while promoting the neuroinflammation that accelerates atrophy. Your brain is not a fixed object slowly running down. It is a living, responsive, adaptable organ, capable of growth at any age, capable of recovery at any stage, but it requires the right conditions. And the modern world, by default, does not provide them. You have to provide them deliberately. Start with the one that moves the needle most. Exercise. 3 walks this week. That is all. Watch what happens to your thinking, your mood, your memory within days. If this video gave you something important, share it with someone whose brain you care about. And subscribe to Vital Drift. Every week, we decode what modern life is doing to your brain and body and give you the science to fight back. See you in the next one.